Boeing is an incredible company, and hopefully they'll very quickly come up with the answer. But until they do, the planes are grounded.
It is Thursday, March 14th, and this is Fox and Friends First, happening right now at 4 a.m. A Fox News alert for you. Brand new fears for flyers this morning after President Trump orders Boeing's prized new jet grounded. The latest on the urgent investigation and the widespread impact to travelers. And the president also getting ready to issue his first veto, with the Senate poised to block his emergency declaration at the border. We're live in Washington ahead of the fallout. And is air pollution racist? The new study that has social media blowing smoke this morning. Fox and Friends First starts right now. I'm Heather Childers, and we certainly appreciate you starting your very early day with us. Let's get straight to that Fox News alert for you, though. We just mentioned several airlines grounding their Boeing 737 MAX fleets after President Trump suspends the planes. This comes after 2 jets crashed in less than a year, killing hundreds of people. Aisha Husni joins us now live with Boeing's response. Good morning.
Good morning, Heather. Yeah, this move is going to impact airlines like Southwest, American, and United. Some big airlines here. They all have the Boeing 737 MAX planes among their fleet, potentially impacting travel for thousands of passengers this week. This comes after 157 people died when an Ethiopian Airlines flight crashed 3 days ago. That tragedy, eerily similar to the Lion Air crash last fall, also involving a Boeing 737 MAX 8 plane. Airlines in countries around the world like China, Australia immediately grounded the jetliner, and now the FAA is following suit here. They're saying this, quote, "The agency made this decision as a result of the data gathering process and new evidence collected at the site and analyzed. This evidence, together with newly refined satellite data available to FAA, led to this decision."
Boeing is an incredible company. They are working very, very hard right now. And hopefully they'll very quickly come up with the answer. But until they do, the planes are grounded. The safety of the American people, all people, is our paramount concern.
So what does Boeing say about this? Well, the company says they are supporting the temporary suspension out of, quote, an abundance of caution here. But Heather, a lot of big airlines impacted by this. If somebody is flying this week, they might want to check their flight.
Yeah, absolutely. We have much more of this coming up with Brett Velikovich, Operations Intel analyst, later in the show. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Well, the fight over President Trump's national emergency declaration coming to a head. Just hours from now, the Senate will consider blocking it. And if they do, the president is vowing to veto. Griff Jenkins is live for us in our nation's capital as the Trump administration makes its final pitch. Good morning, Griff.
Good morning, Heather. It's a 11th hour push, if you will, hoping to stop GOP defections. Vice President Pence was touring Customs and Border Protection's training facility in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia yesterday with a clear message for Republican senators.
A vote against the president's emergency declaration is a vote against border security. A vote against the president's emergency declaration is a vote to deny the humanitarian and security crisis at our southern border.
And they are feeling the pressure. Senator Rand Paul telling the Washington Post, if you see anybody that's got blood dripping out of their ear, they might be changing. But as it stands, the math simply not in the president's favor. 5 Republican senators have signaled they will vote to block the declaration. Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Rand Paul, Tom Tillis, and Mike Lee. Now, Senator Lee attempted a compromise yesterday with the proposal allowing the border emergency while putting limits on future presidents' use of emergency declarations. It was shot down, and Minority Leader Chuck Schumer also bringing pressure as well.
You ought to stand up to fear. Do the right thing no matter who is in the White House. Our Republican friends know the right thing to do. They should not be afraid to do it.
But the president seems unconcerned, ready to issue his first veto.
We'll see whether or not I have to do the veto, and it will be I think all very successful regardless of how it all works out, but it's going to be very successful.
So here's what to watch for, Heather. It only takes 4 GOP defections to block. And with 5, that means 2 would have to have a change of heart. Very unlikely, but you never know anymore in Washington.
Yeah, you never know how that art of the deal may still work. Thank you so much, Griff. Well, let's talk about this. Lots of people covering it. Paul Manafort slapped with some new charges after being sentenced to 7.5 years behind bars. The former Trump campaign manager just indicted for mortgage fraud, conspiracy, and falsifying records in New York. This announcement coming less than an hour after a federal judge sentenced him to 43 months in prison for illegally lobbying in Ukraine. Last week, of course, Manafort was sentenced to 47 months for fraud. Well, cameras will be allowed inside a Chicago courtroom later this morning when Empire actor Jussie Smollett appears. He's expected to plead not guilty to 16 felony counts. Smollett accused of staging a phony hate crime on himself. Empire's first episode since his arrest aired last night, by the way. Smollett's character was front and center. He has since, though, been written out of the final 2 episodes of the show. Well, the University of Southern California will review applications of students involved in the largest college admissions scandal in U.S. history. Actress Lori Loughlin, charged with bribing that school, is now out on bond. And Todd Pyro joins us live with the very latest developments. So lots of folks involved in this and lots of schools.
We can't get enough of this story, Heather, and a huge response from USC, one of the big-time schools targeted. A spokesperson writing, quote, "We are going to conduct a case-by-case review for current students and graduates that may be connected to the scheme alleged by the government. We will make informed, appropriate decisions once those reviews have been completed. Some of these individuals may have been minors at the time of their application process. Applicants in the current admission cycle who are connected to the scheme alleged by the government will be denied admission to USC. Going to be interesting to see how other schools follow suit. All this as actress Lori Loughlin is released on a $1 million bond following her appearance in federal court in L.A. The Full House star, along with her husband, accused of paying $500,000 in bribes to get their daughters into USC, passing them off as rowers, even though it appears they've never picked up an oar. Senator John Kennedy says the scandal is endemic of a bigger problem of the middle class getting hurt.
This is some of the most odious, vile, repugnant, reprehensible conduct I've ever seen. We look around and we see too many undeserving people at the top cutting corners and getting bailouts, and too many undeserving people at the bottom getting handouts, and we're playing by the rules and we get screwed every time.
Loughlin and her husband, along with another actress accused, Felicity Huffman, scheduled to face a Boston judge on March 29th. And Heather, we will see if prosecutors call the children involved as witnesses and what impact that has on any deals those parents might make. It's a whole different story when your kids have to go on a witness stand. It's going to be interesting to see what happens.
At least one of those kids has spoken out.
Right.
So we'll see if they have more to say. And the website, the alleged mastermind behind all of this,
right.
He was running that organization called The Key. The website is still up, which is interesting.
It's going to be interesting. Something tells me that'll be down in the next 24, 48
Lots of testimonials
hours.
on it, too. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Well, let's talk about this now. 7 Republicans breaking with President Trump, voting to pull U.S. troops from the Saudi-led war in Yemen. The bill would require American troops to leave the Middle Eastern nation within 30 days unless they're specifically fighting against al-Qaeda. President Trump has threatened to veto the final bill. And today, the British Parliament will decide whether to delay Brexit. The decision coming hours after lawmakers voted not to leave the European Union without a deal. Prime Minister Theresa May has been pushing to keep that option open. Right now, the UK is scheduled to break with the EU on March 29th, so not a lot of time left. And Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross will be grilled on Capitol Hill today. The House Oversight Committee demanding to know why the Trump administration is pushing to ask, are you a citizen in the 2020 census? Now, the hearing comes just days after a second federal judge ruled the question violates the Constitution. The Supreme Court plans to take up that case next month. And Congresswoman Ilhan Omar's daughter leading a nationwide walkout on Friday. Ishra Hersey is helping organize a student protest against climate change as thousands of teens are expected to cut class and demand that lawmakers take action. The Minnesota Democrat is calling on members of Congress to join her daughter's protest. And did you see this yesterday? Facebook, Instagram, all of it. Facebook turned to Twitter after its longest outage in 15 years. The social media site is back up and running this morning after users all around the world reported problems on Wednesday. Facebook tweeting that they were working to resolve the issue and that there was no, quote, denial of service attack. Instagram and WhatsApp also had problems, but they're now all back up. Facebook has not said what caused the outages. Makes you wonder, though. Well, breaking overnight, the Gambino family crime boss gunned down and run over right outside his home. What police just revealed overnight about the brazen murder. And Boeing's prized new jets banned from U.S. airspace. Should they be grounded for good? Brett Velikovich says yes, and he joins us live to explain why.
Boeing is an incredible company. They are working very, very hard right now. And hopefully they'll very quickly come up with the answer. But until they do, the planes are grounded. The safety of the American people and all people is our paramount concern.
Well, President Trump halting all Boeing 737 MAX 8 and 9 planes from taking flight in the U.S. after new information following 2 deadly crashes comes to light. So is this the right move? Here now to weigh in is former Army Special Operations Intelligence Analyst Brett Velikovich. Thank you so much for joining us. We certainly appreciate it.
Hi, Heather.
So as we begin our discussion, let's bring up this map. The United States, actually the last country to join this list, banning these particular planes from flying right now. We had a guest on yesterday, an aviation expert, who said there still wasn't enough evidence. But you say this should have actually happened before yesterday.
Well, Heather, it just seems absurd to me that they weren't grounded earlier, and I think the president took the appropriate action despite likely heavy lobbying efforts on behalf of Boeing behind the scenes in an effort to have some damage control here. And what worries me is to think that there's this idea of potentially here company profits taking precedent over public safety, and that this profit grab may have actually played a role in convincing the FAA to not necessarily take action beforehand. And so I'm concerned about really the question people should be asking here, which is what took them so long, because I'm not aware of a situation before where the FAA waited so long to act in this case. And it just seems to me that the FAA and Boeing sat around the table and failed to act in the best interest of the American people because they took action only after a public outcry.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. You know, compare this to previous incidents, and in terms of other countries, it looks like we followed their lead this time.
Yeah, that's exactly what we did. I mean, typically we are at the forefront of aviation safety, and it's pretty much common for other countries to follow our leads. But yet it took us quite a bit of time to issue this statement here, and so it just seems a bit odd to me. And I hope that we don't find out that there was some kind of effort behind the scene to maintain Boeing's profits here as a result of all this.
What about in terms of Boeing and their response and their efforts at damage control? You know, social media came into play with this between the president and what he was tweeting, and then a response from Boeing.
Yeah, so they're taking the appropriate action now, just after the fact. I mean, there's going to be an investigation here by the FAA. You know, typically when it comes to these investigations and the next steps, airline incidents, we find out are rarely caused by a single failure or a single action, and most often, it's a case of a chain of events that happens. So the FAA right now is going to focus their investigation on figuring out which part of these chain of events resulted in this failure. And what I think we're going to find here during the course of this investigation is not only was there a software problem here with the autopilot, but that the pilots were not adequately trained to adjust to this failure here. And there's this question here of whether or not overseas pilots have the same sort of standards of training. But I got to tell you, regardless of a pilot's training or competence level, in my opinion, the pressure to overcome an engineering failure that is known should not be on the pilots. No pilot on the planet should have to adjust for this engine failure. So this is on Boeing.
Yeah, so we know that Ethiopia didn't have the capability of, extracting the information that they needed from these black boxes. We know that they're supposed to be delivered to France, I think, sometime this morning. What do you think we will get from them, and how will that help?
Well, I think that in the end, it's just going to solidify what people already believe here, was that there was definitely a correlation with the Lion Air flight, and that there were some autopilot issues that took place that they need to fix here with a software update, and it's just going to further provide them the evidence in this case. And then they're going to release that information to the public. But, I got to say also at the same time, I mean, how much of this is on the airline as well? Everyone's kind of screaming Boeing here, but these airlines are responsible when they hear about these complaints from these pilots that are saying there's problems with these aircraft. Why does it take them so long to respond? And why are these pilots having to report these things anonymously? Because maybe they just, they don't feel like they can report it without getting in trouble. And so I think the FAA has got to do a better job of pulling all this data together and making sure our skies are safer. So
that being the case, I mean, we're talking about a lot of flights here. American Airlines, about 85 flights a day using the MAX 85, or I'm sorry, the MAX 8S and the MAX 9S. United Airlines, about 40 flights. So how quickly will it spin back around and we'll have these planes back in the air?
Well, hopefully pretty soon. I mean, you've got a lot of money being lost for sure. I mean, we heard that one of the airlines that shut down the plane right now is looking at Boeing to fund every day that this aircraft is done. So it's in the best interest of just about everyone to get these planes back in the air. But at the same time, we can't overcome this issue of making sure our skies are safe and that our public is safe. And so, in my opinion, they need to take as long as possible to ensure this doesn't happen again.
Yeah, passenger safety first and foremost. I didn't even mention Southwest Airlines, the most, 150 flights a day. All right, thank you so much, Brett. We appreciate having you with us. Well, the time now is about 20 minutes after the top of the hour. And driving towards disaster, the incredible moment a truck nearly plows right into a plane skimming the highway. What? And Beto O'Rourke mulling a 2020 presidential run. But everyone really wants to know, what is his dog thinking? Carly Shimkus here with the picture going viral. Welcome back. You're watching Fox and Friends First. The air that Americans breathe isn't equal. That is according to a USA Today article citing a study finding that there is a race gap in pollution, and it has social media and Donald Trump Jr. outraged. Carly Shimkus with Fox News Headlines 24/7. SiriusXM 115 is here with more. What in the world is this talking about?
All right. So this USA Today piece is really a look at air pollution through the lens of wealth and equality. So it claims that white people consume more things, thus affecting minorities who live in inner cities more.
So causing
the air that they
more
breathe.
Pollution to begin with.
That is right. So here we have a direct quote from the article. It says Black and Hispanic Americans bear a pollution burden. Non-Hispanic whites experience a pollution advantage, meaning they breathe about 17% less air pollution than whites cause. Well, this article, grinding Donald Trump Jr.'s gears. He said, just when you thought you've seen it all, now we have racist air. This insanity has to stop. His tweet sparking a wave of reaction. Amy says, now I've heard it all. And another person on Instagram says, more like the ignorance from the left is polluting the American air. And lastly, another Instagram commenter says, I'm speechless. Who thinks these things up? It's asinine. Like I did say, it's not really about air itself being racist. It's more a look at how much you personally consume versus the air quality around you.
All right. Well, let's move on to this next topic, though, because Beto O'Rourke, he is appearing on the cover of Vanity Fair. Everyone wants to know what in the world his dog is thinking.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, well, he just he may be announcing a president.
That he's going to announce today.
And this is so 2019 of him. He texted an El Paso TV station saying, I'm really proud of what El Paso did and what El Paso represents. It's a big part of why I'm running. This city is the best example of this country at its best. So he confirmed the run there. But let's go back to the cover of the Vanity Fair magazine because everybody on social media is just talking about what his dog is thinking. Look at
And it's not just that picture, because people started posting other pictures he had posted on social media of his dog, and his dog has the same look.
He just has those adorable, sad puppy dog eyes. One Twitter user says Beto O'Rourke's dog looks scared to death of him. I don't know about that. And Henry says, where is the GoFundMe? Beto's dog needs all the help he can get. Cute.
Yeah, I think
I'm sure
was trending.
What he's thinking, I'm sure what he's thinking is feed me and play with me. Those are the two thoughts on that adorable dog's mind.
Yeah, other people comparing that picture to Reagan. So, same outfit, actually.
Annie Leibovitz as well.
Let's talk about this new study that finds early risers are happier and more successful people.
That's right. Good news for our viewers. This new study found that early risers are more likely to be married with kids, earn more money, happy, friendly, and confident, have high quality sleep, and participate in active hobbies. So just a better all-around life if you wake up early and go to bed early. One person on Facebook says, so it's confirmed, the early bird gets the worm. And another Twitter user says, let's agree to disagree. The study found that night owls are more shy and sarcastic.
Yeah, but I was saying, I wonder what time they consider early. Do they consider midnight, getting up late or early? What is that?
Nobody considers that anything but something
Except
that nobody
life
should
for
do.
some of us. Yes. All right. Thank you so much, Carly.
Thank you.
Well, the time now is almost half past the top of the hour. And did Loretta Lynch lie? Just released Lisa Page testimony raises some brand new questions about not charging Hillary Clinton. Well, our next guest says that that tarmac meeting with Bill Clinton looks way worse now. And most magical place on earth is on track to be the most expensive place on earth. The jaw-dropping price hike, I should say.
Not whole without a soul.
Welcome back. A look at our top headlines for you at this hour, starting with a Fox News alert for you. Several airlines grounding their Boeing 737 MAX fleets after President Trump suspends the planes. Southwest, American, and United are among the airlines impacted, disrupting travel for thousands of passengers. And the order coming after two jets crashed in less than a year, killing hundreds of people. And President Trump threatening to veto the resolution to end his national emergency declaration just hours from now. The Senate will vote on the issue. 5 Republicans have said that they will vote with Democrats. And actress Lori Loughlin released on $1 million bond. She is charged in the latest college admissions bribery scandal, the largest one in U.S. history. Loughlin and her husband accused of bribing the University of Southern California into admitting their daughters as part of the rowing team. She is due in court at the end of the month. And now a Fox News alert for you. Breaking overnight, a New York City mob boss gunned down outside his home. Gambino family leader Frankie Cali shot several times in Staten Island. The gunman sped away in a blue pickup truck and is on the run at this hour. Unclear if it was a mafia hit or a rogue gunman. Cali is the highest-ranking mobster killed in New York since 1985. That's when John Gotti ordered the murder of Gambino boss Paul Castellano. Well, R. Kelly returning to court, where a judge refuses to lower his $21,000 a month child support payments. The embattled R&B singer was jailed last week over missed payments. He spent 3 days in jail until someone paid up on his behalf. Now, this case is separate from his criminal case, where he faces 10 counts of aggravated criminal sexual abuse. Well, former Attorney General Loretta Lynch back in the hot seat this morning. Newly released transcripts from former FBI Attorney Lisa Page's congressional hearing may show that Lynch influenced the decision not to charge Hillary Clinton in her email probe. Joining me now to weigh in is attorney and conservative radio talk show host Shandell Summer. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Heather. It's good to be here.
So break it down for us. What do you think the implications are here in what's been released so far?
Of course, Loretta Lynn famously had that meeting with former President Bill Clinton shortly before James Comey announced his decision not to prosecute Hillary Clinton for her use of her private email server to send classified material.
Yeah, the tarmac meeting.
At the time, they suggest the tarmac meeting in Phoenix, Arizona, where their planes just happened to be next to each other. And Bill Clinton said that he just hopped off the plane and went over to shake hands with Loretta Lynch. At the time, it seemed a little implausible that you can just get off a plane. I've been on a lot of planes. I'm sure you have. You don't really just get off the plane, walk across the runway to talk to people on the other plane. It's not a social occasion. So that whole explanation didn't really hold water. But now we learn that Lisa Page, who was the attorney for the FBI, who made decisions about charging and what type of charges were going to be brought, also had communications with the Department of Justice, and Loretta Lynn was Attorney General, so she controlled the Department of Justice.
And on that note,
they were the ones.
Right, and on that note, because you're making that point now, let's bring up exactly what, there was some of what was released. This is Lisa Page in the interview with the House Judiciary Committee, where she says, or actually Representative Ratcliffe says, when you say advice you got from the department, you're making it sound like it was the department that told you you're not going to charge gross negligence because we're the prosecutors and we're telling you, we're telling you we're not going to. And then Page answers, that's correct. And we want to fill in the blanks here because this was a previous text message to Peter Strzok, who she was dating at the time, another FBI agent. This was released previously, where it says, I want to believe the path you threw out for consideration in Andy's office, that there's no way he gets elected, but I'm afraid we can't take that risk. It's like an insurance policy in the unlikely event you die before you're 40. So basically this fills in the blanks of what many people suspected, and that was that this insurance policy had to do with, Hillary Clinton, and that now perhaps that tarmac meeting that you were just talking about, Loretta Lynch, wasn't just dealing with grandchildren and golf.
That's correct, and that was their explanation, that it was just an innocuous meeting. But again, that is far-fetched to begin with. And then you have to remember the fact that the Department of Justice has the responsibility for making the charging decision, but Loretta Lynn testified before Congress that she deferred that decision to James Comey. Well, this suggests that the Department of Justice had more to do with the charging decision than they're owning up to. And it's important because what they wanted to charge Hillary Clinton with was gross negligence. And gross negligence under the statute is exactly the explanation that James Comey gave for what her behavior consisted of. He said that her use of the private email server was extreme carelessness. Well, that's exactly what gross negligence is. Now, legal scholars differ on this issue. Some say that the reason that James Comey did not charge or did not make the decision to charge Hillary Clinton, even though it wasn't his decision to make, it was Loretta Lynch's, is because of the fact that he thought that the charge involved intent. But again, legal scholars say that the clear reading of the statute says gross negligence. And that's exactly what he described her conduct to be.
Yeah, interesting that one of the other notes was that the DOJ was not willing to charge this. Only known cases are military cases when accused lost the information. So we'll see what comes of this, if anything at all. Shandell, thank you so much. We appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, Heather.
Right, have a good day. Well, the time now is about 20 minutes until the top of the hour, and parents now facing criminal charges just to get their kids in elite schools. Well, they may have done it for nothing. Our next guest is a former admissions counselor, and he says that schools already favor rich kids. He breaks down what he calls a messy business. And take a look at this, a plane narrowly missing a truck. Look at that plane go by there. The insane moments caught on dash cam. Welcome back. You're watching Fox and Friends First. The college bribery scam raising new questions about the admissions process at schools across the country. So do kids of America's most elite parents have a leg up just for being rich? Former admissions counselor Nigel Donald joins us now live with an inside look at how and why certain students are selected. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Good morning.
So as we begin, let's bring up the list of some of the colleges and universities involved in the admissions scandal. Take a look at this list: Georgetown, Stanford, University of California, Los Angeles, and the list goes on from there. These are some big name schools. So you've been on the inside of this, the process that happens. Yeah. Take us through that just a little bit.
Well, you start your year out, and the university always sets what they want. It might be 1,000 students, 1,200 students, and every counselor is given territories, maybe special admissions categories that they're going out there into the world throughout the state. And you're admitting those students. And as the year comes to an end, that number of students that you can enroll, that gets smaller. So the amount of people that you want to get in as opposed to the amount of seats that are available begins to get a little lucrative at that point.
So how do you come up with those different groups?
Those are set by the university.
Okay.
In many typical cases, the Board of Trustees are setting those standards. GPA, SAT scores, any kind of athletes, those are all the considerations that go into effect.
And that's what we saw in terms of some of the issues here with some of these students and this whole scam where they were actually saying that they were playing certain sports when in fact they were not, never had.
Yeah, and you can sometimes see that. I don't believe that was being done at the university I was working at, but you can see in some cases where you do have a coach be approached and say, hey, you know, my son or daughter they've done this before. Let's maybe bring them into that route.
Had you been warned about this type of activity at the school where you were working?
We haven't been warned about it. It was something that was very unlikely to ever happen.
Or did you feel pressure from students, from parents that could perhaps contribute more to fundraising at the school?
In some cases, yes, there was some pressure, and that pressure wasn't coming directly from the parents. The pressure was sometimes coming in lieu of maybe higher senior level officials.
Okay. So why do you think parents, these particular parents, felt that they needed to do this to give their kids a leg up?
In some cases, you have, although these kids are well off in their cases, they slack off academically. And at the end of the day, you have a, potentially wealthy celebrity parent that, wants to maybe keep that prestige, and they don't want to see their son or daughter not be at a level of success, not going to college, not obtaining the higher things in life.
So what can be done in terms of the admission process to keep something like this from happening again?
In that case, I think at most points, state oversight, maybe some oversight as to how many students are being admitted. In some cases, maybe more rash cases, maybe having the state step in to say this is where we want to see how many students are being admitted to universities in our state.
Do you believe that the universities didn't know that this was happening?
I do believe to some degree, some of the universities out there were aware. And I think that this is going to only crescendo into a larger problem across the United States. So I think that there are some officials that might have been involved into it. And I think on the other hand, there are officials that were completely caught off guard.
Yeah. All right. Well, definitely more to come on it. Thank you so much, Nigel. Great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. Well, the time now is about 15 minutes until the top of the hour. And the fallout for flyers after President Trump grounds Boeing 737 MAX jets. We're live in Philadelphia at the Philadelphia airport with the very latest. And take a look at this. These cute little hot dogs get more than they bargained for at the finish line. Several airlines grounding Boeing 737 MAX fleets after President Trump suspends the planes. This comes after 2 jets crashed in less than a year, killing hundreds of people. Sabina Kuriakose from our Fox affiliate in Philadelphia joins us now live from the city's airport where flights are being delayed and canceled. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Heather. Yeah, here we are at a very busy Philly International. We got here around 3 o'clock this morning, and there were already people in line at the Southwest desk trying to rebook their flights. They tell us that they were scrambling. Some of them told us that they didn't find out until much later than they checked that their flights were actually canceled. And they told us about 2-hour-long waits when they tried to call in to try to rebook. Now, a lot of the passengers that we talked to say, hey, safety comes first, but they were hoping that the airlines would have some kind of a contingency plan already in place because it looked like the grounding might be coming for a couple of days now. So they were really surprised that they were going to have to deal with these problems once they got to the airport. Now, we know Southwest has the most MAX 8s out of any airline in the U.S. They have about 34 of them. Philly International is actually a hub for American, but we are told that they do not have any MAX 8s flying in or out, and none of their flights have been affected. United here do have flights, and of course they also have about 14 MAX 9s. So far, it doesn't look like many of their flights have been affected. So we're really talking about Southwest passengers that are dealing with the delays and the cancellations. Some of them flying to Las Vegas or Florida. We had some folks heading to Philly's training camp, and they were really concerned because they were thinking they were going to have to rebook their hotel hotel rooms and their games. So that's what we're dealing with. Luckily, a lot of the folks that we talked to, they were able to rebook their flights, but some folks, they're still waiting to hear. Worth noting, though, that even if you're not flying on a MAX 8 or a MAX 9, you want to triple check your flight status, because some folks are talking about a cascading effect at this point. For now, back to you.
Of course. You know, and we're told Southwest Airlines all across the country, about 4,100 flights impacted. So be aware. Thank you so much. Speaking of impacting businesses, this Fox Business Alert for you. Federal prosecutors launching a criminal investigation into Facebook over the company's privacy policies. Tracy Carrasco from our sister network, Fox Business, here with more on the social media giant's alleged data deals. Good morning.
Good morning, Heather. Yes, a grand jury in New York has subpoenaed records for about 2 big smartphone makers. This is according to a report in the New York Times for their deals with Facebook, these partnerships that gave the companies access to users' information, their friends list, their contact information, all of that sort of thing. And this often happened without users' consent. So these companies are about 150 companies involved that have these partnerships with Facebook, companies like Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Sony, so some very big names. Facebook, though, says that they've ended these partnerships within the last 2 years or so. They say they are also cooperating with this investigation, this criminal investigation. But it comes at a time when these social media companies are really under scrutiny because of all of the issues they've had with these data sharing privacy policies.
Yeah, I want to know why they went down for so long, Facebook, Instagram, overnight and yesterday.
Still looking into that, I think.
All right. Well, let's talk about Disney, though. Holiday trips there just got a lot more expensive.
Yes, if you were going to Walt Disney World in Orlando, Florida, ticket prices are going up once again. So to get into one of the parks for one day, it will cost you between $109 and $159 for one person, just depending on how busy the park is. Previously, it was between $109 and $129. One-day park hopper tickets, that's where you can visit more than one park in a day. Those tickets also now going for $169 to $219. Previously, about $139 to $189. The most expensive time of the year is going to be the week of Christmas. All of this comes ahead of Disney opening up the new Star Wars land, which is highly anticipated. That is opening up in August.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah.
But something perhaps a little cheaper. Today is a Pi Day, right?
Yes, today is Pi Day. Pi is the ratio of the circumference of a circle to its diameter. Also frequently remembered as 3.14. Today is March 14th.
Yes.
So that's why we are celebrating. There are lots of deals, not just for pizza pies, but also dessert pies as well. Blaze Pizza, $3.14. You can build your own pizza. Bojangles, 3 sweet potato pies for $3.14. Whole Foods, $3.14 off any large bakery pies. Lots of other places, California Pizza Kitchen, CC's, even 7-Eleven has deals today.
Yeah, $3.14 goes on infinitely, right?
Yes, it does.
But the deals don't.
They do not.
Take advantage
today.
of it. Thank you, Tracy.
Thanks, Heather.
Well, the time now is about 6 minutes until the top of the hour. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words, but this video is priceless. The wipeout caught on camera that will make your morning. On local police to limit their partnership with ICE. The group says more than 9,000 federal immigration agents have access to high-tech license plate readers, which can scan 30 plates per minute. The ACLU says that it gives the feds access to too much sensitive information. And Democratic Socialist Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, teaming up with Reverend Al Sharpton, the New York Congresswoman, will speak at the National Action Network next month. Sharpton calls her, quote, very smart and committed to the progressive agenda. Well, now it's time for the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we begin with the good. These kids, they thought that they were just doing a hot dog race at the ballpark, but there was someone very special waiting at the finish line in Arizona. Watch. Marine Sean Trickett hugging his kids after returning home from Afghanistan. That's awesome. And now the bad. Dash cam capturing a driver's close call with a crashing plane. Watch as it barely misses a tow truck as its wing skims across a highway near an airport. The plane crashing into a ditch on the other side of the road. This was in Canada. The pilot and the passenger, amazingly, not injured. And not anyone injured on the road either. And finally, the ugly. A college basketball coach gets so excited, he falls to the ground. University of Nebraska head coach Tim Miles falling to the ground after winning his game, but he got right back up. They beat Rutgers 68-61. Next up, Maryland. That's good. That's great. He won. That's not ugly. Well, that wraps up this hour of Fox and Friends First. Thank you for joining us. Fox and Friends First continues right now. Bye-bye.